and welcome to the latest episode of Worldly Wise, the Federal's weekly program where we take closer look at trending geopolitical developments with our consulting editor K.S. Dakshinamurthy, a specialist in international politics. The US-Israel war on Iran is bound by ceasefire since April 7 that was expected to lead to an end to the war. Yet fighting is continuing sporadically. While diplomatic efforts to end the war is also going on, with the US President Donald Trump expressing optimism, nothing concrete has actually emerged to bring about that peace. So, the next big question is if this is going to be a never ending war. Let's discuss this worrisome possibility. So, thank you for joining. And over the past few days, we've seen repeated talk of a possible US-Iran agreement. Yet, missile and drone threats have not completely stopped in the Gulf. So, are we genuinely moving towards de-escalation, or are both sides simply buying time?
See, as far as Iran is concerned, their priorities are very clear. They want to enter into a peace agreement without compromising on their sovereignty, which means that they don't want to be arm twisted into a peace deal. That's the first thing. As far as the US is concerned and Trump is concerned, um, Trump is very clear that Iran should not have a nuclear program at all, and more importantly, the enriched uranium has to be given to the US or to somebody else, but it should not be in Iran, so that it would prevent Iran from developing or a nuclear weapon. That's as far as Trump is concerned. As far as Israel is concerned, Netanyahu, particularly the prime minister, they want the regime to change. They want the Netanyahu wants that Iran's Islamic dispensation should be replaced by a more amenable or a different kind of a setup, which is not as hostile to Israel. So these are the three varying demands, or the conditions on which the agreement has to be settled. Now, the issue is initially Trump was insisting that Iran has to give up its nuclear program. But what has happened over time is that he has slightly softened. If you have noticed that the latest extension to the ceasefire, for the next 60 days, the condition has become something else. The US now wants Iran to unblock or completely keep the Strait of Hormuz free. So the entire goalpost has changed. It's the US is not talking about an end to the Iran's nuclear program. The US now wants that Iran should give up its control or its attempted control over the Strait of Hormuz. The US also will back off from its blockade of the Persian Gulf, and then you have from then on there will be a negotiation that will happen, which at some point of time will come to some kind of an understanding as far as the nuclear issue is concerned. Now, this is something that Israel does not want, because Israel is very, unhappy with this prospect, because at the end of it, as far as Israel is concerned, it's not really benefited from this agreement. But the way things are, it's going this way. So, but then Israel, with that conversation that Trump had with Netanyahu, which was reported widely, all the expletives that Trump used against Netanyahu and the harsh language that he used. So all these were a kind of a direct outcome of a kind of a frustration that is creeping up as far as Trump is concerned, because the Trump administration and Trump particularly wants to end this. He wants to end this war. He wants to end this war because there is a tremendous amount of pressure from within the US, and his support is dwindling, as far as the war is concerned, and there are fears that it's going to affect Trump's prospects in the upcoming midterm elections, and even some within his own Republican Party. There are sections of the Republican Party which are now really openly siding with the Democrats in opposition to Trump. So this being the case, Trump is now caught in a kind of a jam. So at the same time, you see that there is some kind of a attacks are happening. In the Middle East, the latest one on Kuwait by Iran. But what Iran is saying is that its targets in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, were targeted by the US. And the US says that Iran is using drones to threaten ships that are trying to pass through. So what is happening now is the first step should be the end of the siege of the Strait of Hormuz, both by Iran and the US. So this looks like this is the way it works now. So all those main demands and etc., they've all been pushed to the background for the time being.
So we were speaking briefly about the conditions for peace. So Iran has linked the ending of Israeli attacks on Lebanon as precondition for peace. So how justified is this, do you think, and is it complicating the move further?
Okay, so if you take Lebanon, now how did Lebanon get linked to this war? That is clearly because of the Hezbollah. See, the Hezbollah in Lebanon is an independent political party. It also has a militia. And the Hezbollah is hugely followed by the Shia population in Lebanon, which is it's a big number. It's a sizable number of Shia population in Lebanon. So, in the current instance, what happened is when Ayatollah Khamenei was assassinated in the initial days, initially when the war started on February 28th, one of the first big casualties was the assassination of Khamenei. So, the Hezbollah responded to that attack and fired rockets into Israel. So, if you see the map of the Middle East or West Asia, as we call it, so you have northern Israel, which is linked to which borders southern Lebanon. The northern Israel and southern Lebanon, they share a common border, and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon fires rockets into Israel. I mean, these are rockets, of course, and they are scary, but they are nowhere compared to what Israel's armory is. I mean, these are actually absolutely nothing, but still, it is considered serious by Israel. So Israel started attacking Lebanon, the Hezbollah camps in Lebanon. So that is how Lebanon got dragged into this. So as far as Israel is concerned, at one end they were also targeting Iran. They were also targeting Lebanon. Now, the history between Hezbollah and Israel goes back to the 1980s. When the civil war happened in Lebanon. So for the last 46 years now, from say around 1982 to 2026, that would make it 84 years. I mean, for 44 years, Hezbollah and Israel have been doing this cat and mouse thing. In fact, Israel had the southern Lebanon under occupation for a long time, and then in 2000, Israel withdrew and went back and gave up on its occupied territory in Lebanon. So for the last 26 years, there has been no major kind of attack that has happened. There were some brief attacks in 2006, and I think once more in probably a few years later. But this is the biggest attack that Israel has embarked on as far as Lebanon is concerned. Now, Hezbollah in Lebanon, okay, is close to Iran because Iran is one of the supporters and organizers of the Hezbollah group. It is considered its proxy in the region. So there is a direct umbilical cord between Iran and the Hezbollah. So when naturally when Iran is talking peace with the US and with Israel, it can't give up on its proxy or its associate, the Hezbollah, because it was Hezbollah started got into the conflict in support of Iran, and they are closely intertwined to each other. So that is the reason why Iran is very particular that Israel has to stop its attacks on Hezbollah, and of course, Hezbollah also will have to stop its attacks on Israel. And Israel has to back off. It has already occupied south of the Litani River in Lebanon. It has occupied land and it's already there. So that would require some kind of a negotiation to happen. But as far as Iran is concerned, the fighting has to stop. Israel should stop attacking Lebanon, and of course, Hezbollah also will
Lebanese.
have to stop attacking. So that is how the Hezbollah has been. That has become an important thing, Lebanon, and whether it is justified, it is, as far as Iran is concerned, it's natural because, like I told you, Hezbollah is part of the support group of Iran. So obviously, Iran won't let down its close friend,
But
ally, or yeah.
but is it complicating the peace negotiations, sir?
It is complicating in the sense because Israel, number one, first of all, is very particular that the regime has to change in Iran. On top of it, what has happened now is the right-wing government in Israel is the right-wing partners. It's a right-wing government plus it's a coalition government. So the coalition partners of Netanyahu are very particular that Israel should not give up the areas it has occupied in Lebanon. It should continue targeting Hezbollah because Hezbollah is constantly targeting Israel. So there is a pushback for Netanyahu within his own government. And on the one hand, you have Trump asking him to stop the fighting in Lebanon. On the other hand, you have his right-wing coalition partners asking him to continue. So he's caught in between. Netanyahu is caught between Trump and his own coalition partners. But as far as Iran is concerned, Iran has very categorically said that we will not sign any peace deal. In fact, Iran stopped talking to the US for a couple of days because it was very upset that Israel was continuing to attack Lebanon. So, so that's the way it is. So as far as Israel is concerned, it's an issue that has become a sticking point, definitely, no doubt about it.
So, looking at recent events, what should we watch most closely over the next week, like the diplomatic negotiations or the congressional action in Washington or developments in the military front?
See, the main thing that one should look out for is the negotiations. Because at the core of this right now, if you take these three things which you pointed out, that is the fighting in the region around Iran, of course Lebanon, and then you also have the pressure from the Congress in the US against Trump. Third is the negotiation, the mediation that is going on, with Pakistan and Turkey, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. So, and of course, Qatar apparently has also joined in with Pakistan full-fledged in this mediation now. So, the mediation is crucial because it's the mediation that is driving any possibility of peace. And it's from the mediation that any other possibility is there. For instance, I'll give you an example. If you take the congressional hearing, now some Republicans voted along with the Democrats, and in fact, they have there's a vote resolution which halts or which stops Trump from continuing the war with Iran. Of course, as per US law, it's not really required that Trump has to go by what the Congress vote is, but it gives him an indication and a kind of of the mood that exists in the country, where his own party people are now voting with the Democrats. And as far as the fighting is concerned in the Middle East, the Gulf countries have had enough of this war because they have become they have got caught in the crossfire and they have suffered a lot economically. It's going to take many years for them to kind of get back, to kind of recover from this. And also in terms of the image, because the Gulf was always considered among the most stable regions in the world. And you have the rest of the world, and especially Indians, so many of us have gone to the Gulf to work there. It runs into millions. So as far as it benefits the Gulf countries as well, of course. So the Gulf countries want this to end. They don't want this to continue. So they are putting pressure on the US to somehow stop this and not to again escalate the fighting. And they're also putting pressure on Iran. It's not that they're putting only pressure on the US. They're also putting pressure on Iran not to target them. So you see, that is at one level. And then you have the pressure in the US. That is another thing. Plus, of course, what's happening in Israel within the Israeli government. But driving all this, like if any possibility is there for peace or any kind of an agreement, we still need to look at the negotiations. That mediation is the most important right now as we speak.
Okay. So India has traditionally, maintained friendly ties with both the United States and Iran, and we've covered this in our previous episodes of Worldly Wise also. So as
Yeah.
the war continues, how difficult will it be for New Delhi to balance its strategic partnership with Washington while also protecting its, most importantly, economic and energy interests in Iran and the, wider Gulf region?
See, as far as India is concerned, okay, India is almost given up on having anything to do with the conflict that is going on between Iran, Israel, and the US. It's also because India is got its own equations with all the parties. With is very close to the US, closer, and they got a traditional ties with Iran. Plus, there is a newfound kind of a bonhomie with Israel. So India is caught once in a while. It moves this way or that. So if you have any kind of a voting that happens in the UN General Assembly or in the if there's a resolution regarding war, India just kind of backs off and says that peace should prevail and negotiation should work, etc., etc. It's because clearly India is unable to take a proactive role in this. I mean, they of course missed the bus. They should have done it long ago. Say at least soon after the conflict started, because India was also in a good position. The very fact that it has good ties with all the three warring parties makes India automatically the right kind of a country to mediate. But India somehow in its foreign policy, in its vision, in its in the long term or even the midterm, it does not. This particular government, Narendra Modi government, is not particularly keen on these kind of activities. So what India has done for the time being is simply sit back. I think as far as India is concerned, I don't think any kind of India has made any kind of a move which is, I mean, of course, it doesn't make any difference to the war or its outcome, because India is not such a big player in the international order, like say the way that China is. So it doesn't make much of a difference. But what India would like to do is, when the war ends, at any point in time, whenever the war ends and it comes to a conclusion, Indian interest should not be hurt by how it behaved during the conflict. So that becomes important, and I think the Indian government is very kind of wary about this, and it doesn't want to make any wrong move now, which will be held against it later. So you see, it's a very cautious kind of a foreign policy which India follows, and more often than not, in the last several decades, that's been the cornerstone of India's foreign policy. Never aggressive, never challenging, other than of course Pakistan. And otherwise, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, it's always cautious and moves, tries to be friends with everyone. So that's what you see even in this situation now.
So we'll have to wait and watch what happens. Thank you for your time, sir.